We want to see ghosts. We want to
Follow you back to your room, watching you bloom in the light of the moon.
What's going on, guys? It's your girl Islander Birds, and I'm back with another video. This is part 2 of my video, so yay! So tonight we're going on a ghost tour, VIP of course. So I already do a video with myself, makeup and all that. So this is my part 2. Make sure to subscribe, share, and comment. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're not, welcome. Remember to go over my Instagram and follow my business pages. And there's also a giveaway going on, so follow the instructions to win. So let's go.
9 o'clock Ghost and Dungeon Tour. If you're not on this list, it's okay. We've got another one coming. I've got Brian, party of 12. And Samantha, party of 8. Yes, we are. Yeah!
Guys, welcome to St. Philip's Church. As some of you guys knew already, this is the oldest church in the Carolinas. Dates back to 1681. That means I can't do math, I'm a history major. What is that? 340 years ago, right? I think that's right. So it's almost 3.5 centuries old. That means that we're looking at not only an old church that dates back to the colonial era, but also a graveyard that has dead people dating back 3.5 centuries. And you're standing or sitting on some of them right now. So the graveyard, if we were over there right now, there's another group there currently, you would see gravestones. That's not where they're limited to. In fact, in Charleston, a lot of the graves throughout history have been covered over by urbanization, or if people were poor or didn't have the resources to afford a gravestone, they were buried in what's called potter's fields. Potter's fields are, unmarked. Maybe they have wooden crosses, so those are not going to last long in hurricanes. Photographed ghost picture we have in Charleston. I'm going to show it to you all here in a second. But you have to understand, it's not of someone who's well known. It's an everyday person. It could have been any one of us whose spirit was unable to move on. Now, when we talk about ghosts, we usually talk about 2 types of paranormal interactions. The first kind is called an active haunt. That's the kind you see in Hollywood, where you see a ghost, or an apparition is coming right. And then the other type of ghost is a residual haunt. There's going to be a quiz at the end, folks, just in case y'all are wondering. Oh, yeah. The residual haunt is what is basically, you hear footsteps down a hall. This is the kind of stuff I dealt with when I worked in the dungeon as a history docent. I'd hear footsteps. The picture I'm going to show y'all here, and you can look on your own phone if you'd like to. You just type in Susan Howard Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. Susan Howard Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. It'll be the first result in Google Images. But this is a picture that was taken in this graveyard. I'm going to walk around with it just in case you prefer to look at my phone. In this picture, you're going to see a woman bent over on her knees, cradling a baby over a grave. Do you guys see her from behind there? Right there in the center of the picture? Yep, right there. Now, we believe you can see her from right behind. This picture was taken of this graveyard on the other side of this fence. This is a picture, and you can zoom in on your own device too, if you prefer. This is you see her right there with the dress, and you see her leaning over the grave. So, taken in 1987. They didn't have easy access to photo editing software in 1987. On top of that, even though you could take those pictures back then, the man who took this picture had no intentions or ulterior motives, and he was just as shocked by this as we are when we see it. His name was Harry Reynolds. Harry Reynolds was an amateur photographer. He took this photo in June the 10th. That date is important. June the 10th, 1987. He snuck in this graveyard. He was trying to get a picture of a graveyard at night. He wasn't looking for a ghost. In fact, Harry Reynolds wasn't necessarily somebody who even believed in ghosts. He also wasn't somebody who necessarily disbelieved in ghosts. Do you know what we call people who don't believe or disbelieve in ghosts, who are kind of on the fence? A ghost sticks. All right, anyway, that's my dad joke of the night, folks. So, some of you may believe in ghosts, some of you not. Some of you may be in the film for double exposure, triple exposure. Right. Problems with... Sorry, I want to interrupt. Sorry.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
So, you can see, do you see that street light in the back of the graveyard back there by the church? Mm-hmm. That's literally right next to her grave. This church, you can't tell it from here, but the steeple is leaning to the left. That is from the earthquake of 1886. So that's something to keep in mind, is that we still have damage all over our city from that earthquake. Right now, folks, is one of the really prettiest alleys in Charleston. And if you were to look at the shape of this alley, you just look up that way, you look down this way, it's pretty narrow, it's pretty long, it's perfect for dueling. Dueling was a very common blood sport here in the 1700s and the 1800s, and it was usually done by men, young men, wealthy men, and it was not just done in the South, it was done all over the country. You may know about the Alexander Hamilton musical. Anyone a fan of that here? Well, that's up in New Jersey and New York, but in the South it tied into prevailing notions of chivalry, so dueling was the most common here as compared to the rest of the country, and it was oftentimes done between men who were wealthy and over things that we would consider pretty stupid to fight over today, or you might just block somebody on Instagram or Facebook. Not something to kill somebody over, but back then, people were willing to die for their sense of honor and chivalry. That happened here. Many of people who dueled here did die, sadly. And these cobblestones that you see in this alley are original. So blood likely poured through these very cobblestones.
So guys, we're on the tour, but
That's such good lighting. I gotta have my airline every time. I'm wearing Brittany's bag.
and I'm wearing his bag. It's given. Let's see. Guys.
The lighting was so good just now.
Yeah, I want to see ghosts.
Girl,
We should. We want to see ghosts. We want to see
she wants
ghosts.
to see ghosts.
That's the main reason. That's the main reason why I come in the store. Okay.
All right, folks, so we're going to talk about the ghost of the building directly behind me. This building is called the Wagner Building. It was built in 1880 by a man named Friedrich Wagner. Where on earth do you think Friedrich Wagner was from?
Charleston.
Well, he later on he was originally Germany. Yeah, he was from Frankfurt, Germany. Moves to Charleston. He picks the worst absolute time to move to Charleston, April of 1861. Didn't watch the news at the time, I guess. He didn't realize the Civil War had just started. He moves here as a poor, penniless German immigrant. He's immediately drafted into the Confederate Army. He had no idea why there was an army or war. In fact, one of the reasons he was moving to America was to get out of Prussian service. They required him to serve in the military there. Well, he moves here and he's immediately drafted into the army. So he fights in the Civil War for 4 years, and ultimately, when the war ends, he's probably one of the few people in the Confederate Army who's more than happy the South lost, because he just wants it to be done. In 1881, he is one of the wealthiest German immigrants in Charleston, and he builds this building, which became a big shipping warehouse. And he had a whole skylight up there on the third floor of that. Yeah, sorry, I forgot you were filming. So that's Washington White Weldon. Now, White Weldon was on the balcony. What happened to him when that earthquake hit? He was catapulted off. Lands on the concrete right below the building, breaks every bone below his neck down to his toes. He is brought to the Roper Hospital, which still exists today. What can they do for a man who's paralyzed in 1886? They can drug him up. Well, they give him morphine. So they give him morphine, but really nothing beyond that. They can't really help him much. So in the few moments where he wasn't drugged up on morphine, he was begging for forgiveness. And I've talked to many people who have been wait staff there who have all experienced weird things. Chairs being moved, tables being overturned, china being knocked off tables, and a shadowy-like figure seen walking on the third floor, especially by those 3 windows up there, which is where Friedrich Wagner, where Washington Williams died. There's people coming out. Guys, back up just a little bit.
Back up.
Sir, you go first, bro.
I'm going in the middle.
No, you're going
Come on, guys, for me.
You're already going in.
I don't want me to go first.
The baby was in it? No, you did not brought the baby in it.
Wait right here.
Someone gonna
So-
grab my leg?
Maybe. When we go in, guys, just a couple of safety things. Please know that the floor is from the 18th century. It is incredibly bumpy, so watch your step. Also, please, everyone, try to avoid yelling or anything when we're in there, because it will echo back at you. These low-hanging arches in there are really big acoustics. So without further ado, if y'all will follow me.
Oh wait, there's not fake people in here grabbing my feet, right? Oh, look at the rats. What?
Don't look at me.
Let's let him keep his distance.
It feels haunted.
It is. I can tell you from personal experience.
That guy looks hot.
Well, he's a mannequin. So, folks, welcome to the dungeon. Now, just a little bit of history about the site, because you can't really understand the ghost stories without appreciating the history of the site. There have been a lot of buildings on this site's history. The building is the very first building. That's the remnants of a 1690s fortification. That's an old barricade called the Half Moon Battery that dates back to the 1690s. I'm going to show you all a model of what it looked like here. The city of Charlestown, as it used to be called, was walled in to keep the citizens safe from the Spanish, French, Native Americans, and pirates. And it was a big fort, and it was defended by about 100 cannons and militiamen. Excuse me, we'll get out of your way here so you can see it better. So that is a model of what you're standing right on top of. Pirates were a huge issue for our city because we were dealing with about 2,500 in the Caribbean, about 1718. Now, we're going to talk about one of the most well-known pirates who's imprisoned here, if you follow me. Now, there used to be a little room within that wooden building called the Pit, where they kept some of the worst offenders. It was a waterlogged, subterranean, dark basement. You can't really have basements here. Y'all saw what happened when you look in the floor over there. It's water, right? That's what we get. That's what that room would have looked like. It stood back here. And it was where a prisoner by the name of Stede Bonnet was imprisoned. Stede Bonnet was one of the most well-known pirates in the Caribbean. He would nail their ears to the masts of his ship. He would light fuses under their fingernails to try to get them to reveal where their treasure was. Yes. He would kill people at random. He was pretty much a sociopath by all intents and purposes. Well, he's eventually house arrest, and after a botched escape attempt, they throw him right down here into the pit. And they sentenced Judge Nicholas Trott, who the locals nicknamed the hanging judge, sentenced Stede Bonnet to death. He says the following: Stede Bonnet, you will go henceforth from the place henceforth in here. This building was built to be a customs house. It was built to be a trading warehouse. It was built to be a meeting room for politicians. It was kind of for the city's politicians. It was not necessarily meant to be a prison, but nevertheless, every building on this site has become a prison in one way or another. During the Revolutionary War, the city of Charleston puts up some pretty heavy resistance. But by 1780, the British are able... Guys, you gotta keep the voices down, I'm gonna talk. By 1780, the city of Charleston falls to the British. And with the capture of Charlestown comes the largest capture of the U.S. forces by a foreign military until World War II. 6,000 prisoners of war are captured by the British. That means that's half of the whole Continental Army. Now, guys, we're going to come back this way for me, please. I'm going to talk right by this door right behind me. So, half of the entire Continental Army is captured in one swoop. And the British make this building their main central prison. Although, of course, you can't fit 6,000 people in here. This is just one of many prisons, and currently the only one that survives. So 6,000 prisoners of war. This building will hold 60 prisoners of war at a time. They were imprisoned from this original doorway to that not-so-original exit sign back there. So 60 people at a time. They included men and women, black and white, slave and free, young and old. They included American prisoners of war who fought on the battlefield. They included British Army deserters, so even some British folks were thrown down here by the British. Common criminals, patriot soldiers, people who are accused of all kinds of crimes. Ladies even were thrown down here. And ultimately it becomes a complete cesspool of humanity. People would be right where you're standing, sleeping in hay, using buckets for toilets, fighting off nasty rats and diseases like typhus, smallpox, yellow fever, and malaria. We know that where you guys are standing on this original floor, about 4 dozen people died and used the bathroom and vomited and bled. This is a pretty hellish place to be during the Revolutionary War.
How were they able to like breathe and stuff?
They couldn't. They absolutely couldn't. Now I can tell you from firsthand experience, I work down here as a daytime tour guide, and if y'all come in the daytime, you'll see it. You wear Revolutionary War clothing down here, it's a brick oven.
Yeah,
and
like, they can barely breathe.
They did not wear deodorant back then. They did not have toilet paper, and men and women were together. So all kinds of the problems your mind can go to happened. Wow. It was horrific, and it was described as the dungeon. That's the word. 3 to 4 dozen deaths happened right here. Now, that's why we believe the spirits of this place are unsettled. And this was a prison for 2 years until the British were kicked out of the city. Now, I had a lot of weird experiences while I worked here as a daytime history guide. I would hear frequent knocking on this original door, and as you can see, there's nothing on the other side. It has been completely and totally bricked up. They bricked this door up. I actually don't really know the full reason why. I've been told it's to have changed the traffic patterns in the building. It just kind of seems like a waste of bricks. But anyway, you can tell this door has not been operable since the 18th century, and I'm hearing knocking on it as if someone's trying to get in. I've seen shadows moving out of the corner of my eye. I've heard doors slamming. And people other than myself, but co-workers of mine, have heard voices down here. People even whispering, echoing off the arches. People have felt pinpricks as if they're being shoved about and thrown around down here. And apparitions, full apparitions have been found. I'm going to pull up one that I think may be the creepiest one I've seen. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. Now, as I'm pulling this up, I'll tell you that one of my favorite stories about the building is a guy named Isaac Hayne. The British wanted to make an example of this particularly rebellious American. They made him sit by his own coffin in the Great Hall upstairs before hanging him. In front of his children, he talked to them by his own coffin the last time, and then he was hanged. People say that you can still see a Continental Army officer walking through that room today. Now, one picture I want to show you all here, I think this is my least favorite ghost picture of Charleston. It's right where that exit sign is. Right as this is when that door used to be hinged open. Notice anything weird about this picture?
Oh, really?
You got right in the doorway, yep. See right there in the doorway? Notice anything strange?
Yeah.
You can even see his eyes. You can see his eyes are almost glowing. This was taken a couple years ago. Let's see it. So that's one of the best apparition pictures I've seen of the dungeon. You don't want that standing behind you. Now, folks, I just don't want to. I don't want to see a ghost. Period. I've heard things. I've felt weird things down here, but I hadn't seen one yet. I don't want to. Now, what I'm going to let y'all do for the next couple of minutes is walk around, take some pictures, see if you can have your own experiences.
One eye is glowing a while ago. No, I'm gonna show you. That's
It was
like
probably the flash.
no, but if it was like those. Listen, Sam. If it was those things, the eye shouldn't look humanly. So I think they put someone here just.
I see.
Sam, let me show you what I was talking about. Alright, look at this gentleman here. You see all them eyes? It doesn't glisten like it's.
Yeah, you know what? I was looking at. Yeah. It's the end of our vlog, guys. Woo! You know, I didn't saw any ghosts, but it was fun.
It was cute.
I saw in my video. You will see that I see like the eyes are glistening and things like that, but no ghosts. No ghosts. So y'all can come out and, you know, get a little tour